I felt this when I was preparing for tonight. I just felt the Lord wanted to somehow talk a little bit about something very practical. I'm not sure how practical it's going to be, but I think it's practical. How many of you encounter fear? How many of you hear that all the time, like fear, fear, fear? And how many of you think you have it all licked? Fear is not a problem at all. Good. So I felt like what I'm going to propose tonight is just, I feel like the Lord just walked me through a couple of these things, and I feel like it's important to just maybe take a look at fear from a different angle. And I want to somehow bring that about because I feel like it's important that we get to the point where we really understand what it actually is. And I want to really go a little bit into the definitions of what it is, and then kind of walk through tonight the way that we hide fear, because we kind of really don't want to tell people that we're fearful. And sometimes we don't even want to tell ourselves that we're fearful. And we have awesome ways how to hide that. So I pray that God will tonight give us an ability to really be transparent with ourselves, and that He will actually walk through that with us and come out the other side. All right? So I want to just read a couple verses to give you context, but I also want to just redefine, I guess, fear from a perspective of what does the Old Testament define fear as? When the Hebrew actually talks about fear, there's a couple of definitions. I'm not sure if you know that, but there's a couple of definitions that fear actually looks like in the Old Testament, then also in the New Testament. So I want to basically address this one. The definition of the Old Testament of the word fear is, are you ready?
Yeah, come on.
Are you really ready?
Yes.
All right. Because it's going to change your life. Yeah, because how many of you are happy in the misery that you're in? Okay, because once I tell you this, everything in your life will have to change because now you know the definition. Are you with me? I'm making a big deal because it's a big deal. Okay? So we're not walking here on any other principle but on biblical principles. So the word fear in the Old Testament means to revere, to stand in awe, to honor, to respect, to cause astonishment, to inspire reverence of godly fear or awe. So now try to picture that with anything that you're afraid of. That is the honor you give to that object. That's the honor you give to that. So I just want to give you the word fear in the context of how the writer of the Old Testament would do that. Deuteronomy says, fear the Lord your God, serve Him only, and take your oath in His name. Job 33:7, no fear of me should alarm you. Want some more? I'll give you some more. Psalm 2:11 says, serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Psalm 33:8, let the earth fear the Lord, let all the people of the world revere Him. Psalm 119:63, I am a friend to all who fear you. Last but not least, Proverbs 1:7, we all know that one. Fear the Lord, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. So that's the Hebrew definition of fear. So whenever the Bible talks about fear in that context, it's not really running, but it's really giving honor and respect. You're actually in awe. Now, put yourself in a position, I'm afraid of singing. I'm afraid of teaching. I'm afraid of confronting. I'm afraid. In other words, I'm in awe I'm giving that moment, that situation, honor, which I should be giving to God, but I'm giving it to that situation. I would expect that something in you would start going, wait a moment, I don't want to give that object that power, that worship, that awe. I don't want to do that. So let's go, because the Old Testament is kind of old, right? So we kind of like, okay, it's the Old Testament. How about what does the New Testament say? So the New Testament has three different definitions in the Greek. They're always more interesting. So it's interesting that the Greek is very similar to what the Hebrew is, because to put to flight by terrifying, to be seized with alarm. We think, okay. Struck with amazement. To reverence, to venerate, to treat with deference and reverential obedience. So again, the word fear, how you would look at it in a sentence. Where is your faith? Luke 8, verse 25. Where is your faith? He asked the disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another. The context is with reverence, with obedience, with awestruck, not about anything else but about who God is. They give him honor and reverence. It's not the biting your nails. Ah! It is a whole different matter of what the way the Bible describes this word. And if that is what God brings into us, then why we give that reverence to anything else in our life? Yeah. Wow. A different verse to describe that word is, then a voice came from the throne saying, Revelation 19:5, praise our God and all his servants, you who fear him, both small and great. I think the word fear is misused today because it really doesn't have anything to do with being afraid. It has everything to do with being in awe and reverence. And giving honor who God is. Amazement. It's something that you've never seen before, and suddenly something comes at you, but it's good. Whatever is coming at you is good. You're just overwhelmed with how good it is. That look shouldn't be a look of fear, although the Bible classifies it, but we don't understand it like that anymore today. Yeah, good word. So the second word is, and this is a little bit interesting because it says the meaning is fear, dread, and terror. So that's something that actually starts happening. But it is in the context of Luke, when Luke 1:12 says, when Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. Again, not a fear that is, it is terror and is crippling, but at the same time, Acts 5:11 says, great fear seized the whole church and all who heard about these events. 1 John 5:14, there is no fear in love. So when you love God, you have no fear. Perfect love casts out all fear. So terror, fear, and dread is not part of when you're walking with God. But when you distrust God, when you don't believe God, that's when that type of fear comes into and settles. So the question, I think, when I'm preparing this, I'm looking at this and I go, there is such an amazing difference between what we today call fear. And I just want to read you what our good American definition says. The fear definition today of, if you Google it, fear is the most general term and implies anxiety and usual loss of courage. Fear of the unknown, dread usually adds the idea of intense reluctance to face or meet a person or situation and suggests aversion as well as anxiety. Face the meetings with dread. Fright implies the shock of sudden startling fear. Wow. That's the definition. And I'm trying to look at this and I go, exactly in John 10:10, the thief comes to only steal, kill, and destroy. That's what the enemy does. So he projects that. And I think the journey that I want to be on is, I want to find the reasons why I start fearing. What is fear actually based upon? If I look at that, if I look at how fear actually in the biblical terms actually explains it as I'm in awe of who God is. I reverence, I honor the situation, I honor what he's giving. I'm honoring that even though when God suddenly appears, there's like you're in awe. But then there's the terror, and then there's that runaway fear, that dread. And that only settles when I don't believe God, when I don't partner with what he says, and when I walk out of the confines of actually what God has for me. I will encounter that. Zechariah had no idea, he didn't believe, and he was filled with dread. So much that God says, again, I don't want you talking no more because you're going to mess it all up, because your life, your words actually will bring life or death, and you're right now not in a place where you're going to actually believe what I'm saying, so I'm going to not have you speak until the baby's born because you can mess it up. Fear will make you say things that you will mess things up that they can't come to pass. You may think that, I'm really not that powerful, and you're going to find out that you're that powerful that when you speak death, actually death happens. When you speak in fear, when you actually consistently talk negative, when you constantly give to yourself to the thoughts that are negative, you're going to find yourself that is what you're struggling the most. Because you're empowering it by actually mentioning it, by actually talking it. So, the natural progress of fear is that unbelief, and I end up, when I'm in unbelief, I end up walking away from the definition of awe because now I gave my awe to the lie. Yeah. I give my awe and my reverence and my honor to somebody who has no honor, but I'm giving it to him because he masqueraded himself. So again, if you look at your life and you find that you are fearful, you're going to have to ask yourself the question, is that the fear, is that the definition I want to give? Right. Do I want to honor the situation? Do I want to honor this? Or do I, if I'm walking outside of that, I'm going to have dread and terror. And the only time I have dread and terror is when I'm not walking in the definition of what God is asking me to do. So I actually have a clear guideline now in how to actually associate through the definitions that God has given me. I can actually identify who is what. I start identifying fears in my life that I usually didn't know, and now I actually am recognizing, wait a moment, I am not in awe of this. I'm not in reverence of this. I'm not going to bow down to this. I'm not going to give this I'm not doing that. And if I find myself terrified, then I know I'm not really believing something, because perfect love actually says it casts out fear, that terror fear. It casts that out. So there's obviously something wrong with my belief system, not God. Are you with me? So I just want to mention a couple things. So what is fear? And I want to kind of bring it a little bit into this place. Demons lie and try to give you reasons to be in awe of them. Yeah. Ooh, that's a good word. Demons try to, in any way, shape, or form, to make you in awe of their when they are imposters of God. They will dress and project themselves as to be something that you need to fear them. Remember, any demonic force, before it exposes itself, when it does so in such a terrifying way that you will want to run. Anytime you encounter a demon, it is the first thing it projects. It is fear. But if you're walking in the presence of God, if you're walking with the definition, what God says is fear, I'm not going to give that demon awe or reverence or honor. I'm not giving him that. And I surely don't have to be terrified of it and run away, because that means I would actually feel that I am outside of the realm of what God is saying. So I know what it is, so I'm definitely not going to be struck with terror. Because I know I believe God. Now, if I don't believe God, then I know what my problem is. I need to believe God. It's that simple. I don't have to go run somebody. I don't have to go read a counseling book. I know, okay, I'm having an issue here. Well, then let me deal with the issue. And as soon as you deal with the issue, you are going to find freedom. Are you with me? So, the enemy constantly runs with broadcasts. You drive someplace, you come home, you're at work, you're here, you come wherever you are, there's broadcasts going on. And have you known, they're never positive. You've never gotten to a place, you're going to win $1 million today. I don't know, I've never heard that broadcast. Somebody's coming home or whatever else, well, it's always the fear factor. So when you actually start processing that, what actually comes to mind is when I am fearful, when the enemy projects fear, all that is I need to say, that's not real. He's lying. He's lying. When there's a projection of fear, I'm going to end. I'm not giving that situation awe right now. I'm not going to give that reverence. I'm not going to give that honor. Honor is bowing down to it. So I'm going to bow down to God in fear, because that's what honor is. But at the same time, I'm not going to do that to the lie. I'm not doing that to the broadcast. I'm not doing that. Why? Because if I do that, I'm giving it the honor that actually God is supposed to get. You and I are empowered to live a life without fear. Jesus Christ has set us free. Not to be enslaved by fear, to be free of fear.
That's right. That's good.
And so, Matthew, fear is a lie keeping you from your destiny, making the possible no longer possible. I'll say that again. Fear is a lie keeping you from your destiny, making the possible no longer possible. In other words, whatever you have been dreaming of, or whatever you're hoping for, whatever you thought about, now when you start believing the lie and giving honor to fear, that what once is possible no longer is possible. Wow. Impossibilities can no longer become possible when you partner with fear. And the life of a believer is then actually only placed to be able to live on earthly principles, no longer supernatural principles. Yeah. The supernatural lifestyle no longer has a part of any believer if fear is anywhere near. If I give honor to the lies, I will never enter into my destiny. Right. I never will enter into my purpose. I will never enter into the place of fullness. Matthew 10:28 says, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul." Do not be afraid. In other words, he's encouraging you, don't give honor to those, don't give honor to those problems, those situations in life that cannot kill your body and soul. Yeah. Hello? Good. There is no reason for the believer to have any fear. If we live under any type of fear, all it means is that we're believing a lie somewhere. Yeah. And we're giving, and because we partner with giving it honor, and we don't want to do that. We can sever at any time. I want to say it this way. When fear fills our minds, it actually puts us into a fight and flight mode. Shutting down our body immune system and putting us into a survival mode, living in the space for life is no longer conducive to getting our destiny and living in rest. I can no longer, if I am in a fight and flight mode, fear brings me into a fight and flight mode. If we partner with fear at any point in time, our body shuts down, our mind shuts down, and we run, and we no longer are in a process that we can actually process healthily anything. When I'm in fear, I'm no longer thinking to be nice. I don't know about you, but when I'm in fear, I'm like a bull in a china closet. Don't get close to me, because if you're in my way, I'll just trample over you. Yeah. I hear you. Right? I know what it is. I lived in Peru for many years, and I know when I was scared witless. And at that point, I don't even know you. Because when you're afraid, it's about you run for your life. I've done that many times. And then when the old lady's in the way, I'm sorry. But I'm jumping over you. I'm running. I mean, bullets are flying. I'm like, I don't care. I need to get down because Dad's going to be ticked off if I'm dead. I'm not kidding you. This is real stuff. So if I live in this survival mode, if I live in fight and flight, I'm no longer actually able to think about my destiny. I'm no longer thinking about the awesome things that God has for me. I'm no longer processing that. I'm just surviving. And if as a believer I live in a survival mode because I'm constantly battling fear, then you wonder why the church is not as powerful as it could be, because fear is constantly, the what ifs, the what ifs, the what ifs, the what ifs, the question, all the what ifs are putting me into a survival mode. Yeah. And as long as Satan has you in the survival mode, you never amount to much. Are you with me? Yeah. So, fear is the absence of the power of God. Fear is the absence of the power of God. I no longer believe that my God is bigger. I believe, my core value believes is that God is a good God. That I have joyful identity in salvation. That I have responsive grace. That means I am empowered by grace. I'm empowered by grace to live a life of godliness. And I focus on living in His presence all day long. But if I live in fear, I don't believe these things. Because I give honor again to a lie instead of to God. Yeah. I make God out to be a liar instead of God being God. When I move away from God's plan or truth, that is what guides me. And if I move away from that's why we always say, Scripture is so important. Know the Word. Because if you know the Word, what happens? You can use it. Yeah. And if you don't know the Word, it's going to be really tough. It's not going to help you. Well, Pastor said. I know a song that kind of says something like this. I know a country song. It's not going to help you. Well, the only thing that's actually going to help you is that you recognize, I need to know what God says about me. I need to know how God empowered me. I need to know the truth about what God says about me. Because when that comes out, the enemy has no more power. Yeah. Come on, so good. Because I live in awe of God. Yes. I don't live in fear of this problem. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't partner with fear. And so, when we move away from God's plan truth, our word is to guide us back to Him. The Word of God is to guide us back to Him. Back to the truth. And some of us have calloused ourselves to the point where we basically, this is just life. misery. I've learned to live with fear. It's just the way life is. It's not going to change because we partner with it. We've learned to live in a state of fear. And we're so afraid to move away from that state of fear because it may get worse. So let me live with just, in other words, I'll live with a pit bull that I'm not sure if it's going to bite me or not, but I don't know, it's the only friend I have. Well, what good does that do? Well, if I'm alone, then I don't know what to do, but I'd rather, well, the dog can bite you and he has bitten you before, yeah, but just a little. Really, just a little. Let me put it this way, our brains are not made to live outside the presence of God. When you live in the presence of God, there's only awe and reverence towards Him, and nothing else even comes close. He calls us children, and children feel safe with their parents, right? Yeah. So there's no fear. When God calls me a child of His, that means I'm safe. There's a slum in Lima, La Victoria, and you didn't want to be there. And my dad was my hero, you know, he was in the military, and he kicked butt over there, so I thought, my thing was, I'll go to La Victoria. If my dad's with me, I'll go anywhere because my dad's going to, you know, kick anybody, right? So for me, that was always the thing, you know. I can go to the worst places. My dad, he was, you know, he pioneered a church in one of the biggest slums, you know, and he'd drive out there every day with my mom, and it was like horrible. It was horrible. I went there a couple times, and I got knife robbed many times, and I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that, you know. That's just nuts, you know. And I was a kid. I was 12 years old. But when I grew up, then it's like my dad was like the guy, right? Yep. But that's how God is. Yeah, wherever He is, if I'm in His presence, He's going to take care of anybody. Wouldn't make a difference who it is. There's nobody stronger than my dad, right? My God, there's nobody. Hey, there's more for me than are against me. Satan, it's not even a contest. There's not even a matchup. Fear is nothing to be revered. But fear is an automatic response to stronghold agreements with demonic forces. Jesus said, Satan has no hold on me. That's why there was no fear. But if you and I partner with strongholds of fear, fear automatically attaches to that. Whatever strongholds you have, it automatically attaches to that. And then you have to figure out, okay, this feels so normal. I'm afraid of this. This feels so normal. And suddenly you go, well, I'm always afraid of this. Are you with me? Yes. I've had people who are afraid of the weirdest things. And I don't want to make light of you because I know some of you have this, but there's other people who are just like that. They're afraid of the weirdest things. Yeah. And I'm not going to say them because everybody's going to say, So you know what you're afraid of. There's people who are afraid of the darndest things. You know what? I'm afraid I'm going to be bald. Like, who cares? You're alive. If you're hair or not hair, I'm afraid of, lots of weird things. But you just start connecting. I'm afraid of, my dad died of a heart attack, so I'm going to die of a heart attack. You start partnering with all these strongholds. Yeah. It becomes a lineage. It becomes an agreement. And instantly, when that situation happens, instantly that fear just drops right in, and you go, yep, that's me. I'm just afraid of that. Why would you give that reverence? Yeah, that's good. Good word. What would you, just think about this. Anytime you have fear, bow down to it. And go, do I want to do that? Yeah. Do I want to honor that? Yeah. If you're afraid of your boss, then bow down to him, see what he says. If you bow down to any kind of situation, just bow down to see, is that what I want to do to this? Do I want to honor that? Yep. And if you say, well, okay, but I have terror, well, then what's the truth? Answer the truth. Okay, if I'm terrified for something, then where am I walking outside of the will here? Right? Fear is automatic response to strongest agreements. And fear is also a broadcast or of an emotion. You can go any place and suddenly fear is there. So what? That's a fake rain. If you're in the desert and you look across the desert, there's water, and you think there's an ocean. It's a lie. I've tried it. We had a 4-wheel drive. You go, oh, there's water in the back there. He said, that's not water. Come on, let's try it one time. We drove and drove and drove. The water never came. It was only just a far away. But it tires out and brought, you waste a bunch of gas. And that's what fear is. Fear is just a figment of, it's an imposter to keep you from what God's destiny is for you. All it is, it shapes itself to intimidate you. And you need to make a decision. Do I reverence it? Do I bow down before it? Or do I say, that's not me. It's not real. You can push it back in the spiritual realm. You can just say, I see you, fear. I don't partner with you. Get out. When you expose it, you go, I see your fear. I see the broadcast of fear right now. I don't partner with that now. I come out from underneath you. Fear is a byproduct used by Satan to terrorize you, to keep you in bondage. And just as an example, you all know neighbors who own the stupid dog who wants to constantly bite his tail. Have you ever seen those dogs? Put them out of the misery, shoot them. I mean, they're like this all day long. But that's us. When you live in fear, you're never going to get out of this. You're just going to bite your tail, and you're eventually going to fall over in disarray. You're like, I can't, because you can't catch your tail. It's impossible. And I love dogs, by the way. We're not meanie like shoot them. Just get them some help. I don't know. If you cut the tail off, maybe it won't stop. Just kidding. It was a joke. Okay. Don't call PETA. But if we concentrate only on fear, we're never going to walk straight. We're always going to walk in a circle, and we're going to come to the same things over and over again. And at one point, we have to say, well, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to bow down to this issue. So let's go to our wonderful name, courage. Courage is the opposite of fear. It's not the absence of fear, it's the opposite of fear. Courage is just, I'm going to start walking on fear. Fear is nothing that I'm going to be worried about. So courage is, I'm going to choose to walk on top of fear. But I'm getting to the other side. Courage says no to anything that does not align with what God says. Courage says, I will not align to anything that God doesn't say. Courage is the side effect of living in the presence and in undignified worship and thankfulness and constant prayer. Courage is living. The side effect of courage is when I'm courageous enough to live in the presence of God, because I was created to live in the presence of God. If I live in that place, the side effect is I will not have fear. I will only have awe for the Lord, but I'll not be impacted by the demonic realm, no matter what they try. We're powerful to live a life with Jesus who lives in us. We're empowered by grace to accomplish everything, and the scripture says that nothing is impossible. So that means if something is impossible and fear comes to you, it says, well, it's not going to be possible. You're partnering already with fear, automatic partnering. You go, no, I don't want automatic partnering. I've done this for 50 years. I'm no longer doing that today. I'm breaking that bondage. I'm just ripping that contract out. I will no longer partner with fear. From now on, and you rip it up, and then the emotions come, you go, I know that. That's an emotion. That's not real. Anytime your heart feels fear, you need to find the lie. Anytime your heart feels fear, you need to find the lie and find the broadcast and kill the lie with truth. Expose the broadcast,
come out from underneath it. I love what it says in Micah chapter 4, verse 2 through 5, and I'm just going to read one verse. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid. There's a time coming, the New Jerusalem. This is what's happening. If that is where we're going, then might as well, I want to start now. I don't want to just get there. I want to start now, taking that what is mine now. So I just want to walk through the last couple of minutes. I want to walk a little bit how we hide. Everybody say, I will not be offended.
I will not be offended.
Good. How many of you have said that? Anything that I'm going to say now, I'm going to put it bluntly. There is truth to what I'm saying. But the Bible says that the Spirit is the one who can cut between the bone and the marrow, right? It's a double-edged sword. And that's what we're talking about. So I want to just express to you our verbiage that we use to deflect that we're really not afraid, but we really are. Are you with me still? Yeah. Okay, so I don't want you guys, well, I can say that like this. Yeah, I know you can, but the point is, are you really? And only honesty and vulnerability is going to get there. Okay, how many of you say, somebody says for you to do something, and you just say, I just don't want to do that. Because you're afraid. But you say, I just don't have no interest in that. I don't want to do that. I have no use for that. See, it depends on what it is, correct? Absolutely, that's what I just said. It just depends on what it is. But the point is, we sometimes say these things because we're afraid of doing it and it sounds so mature. I have no interest in that. We don't want to say, I'm afraid of that. You want to go on a mission trip to Vietnam? I don't do mission trips. You want to go to a mission trip to Pakistan or Iraq? I'm busy. I can't get off vacation or whatever it is, But we are not really want to say, I'm afraid to go there. Are you with me? And every time you partner with an excuse like that, you actually give stronghold power. Because you're not real. Wow. Because you're deflating. You're deflecting, but you're not real. You don't have to go to Iran or Iraq as a mission trip. I'm not asking you to be a martyr. But what I'm asking is don't partner with fear. Well, what am I supposed to say? I don't know. Figure it out. But just be honest. You try to prove things because you mask your fear of rejection. Right? We try to prove things. Well, I'll do that. But we really don't want to be rejected. We fear rejection, so there comes performance. We're doing this because I know you'll like it, because I'm afraid actually of your response if I say no. You want to do this weekend? Yeah, sure. And you're like, I don't really want to, but I don't want to feel rejected. That's called fear. I'm not afraid of anything. I've heard that many times. I'm not afraid of anything. Really? Like, really? I have no fear for nothing. I'm fearless. Wow, okay. Let God deal with that. How about this one? You do it first. I'm not doing it. You do it first. Why? I just want to see you. No, you're afraid. You jump in the water. No, you do it first. Right? I mean, it's stupid. It's the little things, but we have these ways how we hide it. Other one is, that's not important to me because I feel inadequate. And then I just give this little, that's not important. You get hurt by something? That's not a big deal. That's not important to me. Really? No, it's not important. It wasn't important at all. Just by the way we say it, we already know we're laying on the piano, all the tunes are singing. You see, the beautiful part is that God gave us a body that 60-70% of our body is body language. It's actually a language. And your body cannot hide your disdain, fear, anger, frustration, hurt, pain. It cannot. So God, when He puts you into into this relationship face to face, you can lie all you want. But people are going to see, right. How about you not partnering with anything? Just say, I'm not going to give honor to that. I'm going to actually be truthful. Yeah. And you can say, I'm battling right now with fear of that issue, and I don't really want to, but I will conquer this. Yep. I still don't know if I'm going to go to Iraq, but I'm going to conquer this. So when my wife and I, we first got married, we had this guy from Liberia. He's a pastor. And I always wanted to go to Africa to be a missionary. That was my dream. And I don't know why I had lions, but I had lions in Africa, and I was a dream. I said, I'm going to go to Africa, be a missionary. And so when this guy asked me, Marcus, we become close friends. He was quite a bit older than I am. He was in his 40s, and I was in my 20s. And he said, hey, you know what? And we worked together. It was just awesome. And he goes, Marcus, I want you to go with me to Liberia. I want you to plant churches with me. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I really want that. I go, everything in me flamed up like, yeah! And my wonderful wife, she was like, she's about choked. And she goes, I am not, are you kidding me? I'm not going to Liberia. Are you kidding me? And I didn't say anything. I just left it there. And so Wilson came over to the house a couple times. He says, Susie, I know you. You would never want to stay against the will of God. No. So you just give God a chance. No. The next day, he would come. For weeks, he would come until she finally, she really broke down. She said, okay, God, if you want me to go to Liberia. And because he was like, hey, man, we have a house for you already. We have everything. I was getting washer and dryer. I mean, I was like, it was good, We're just trying to get the stuff done. And then she decided, okay. And the moment she decided, okay, it wasn't that even like a day or so later. The moment she decided, okay, he says, everything broke apart. I'm like, dude. And it was all one thing. She had to overcome her fear. She had to not partner with fear. She had to say, I'm going to go in spite of fear. I'm going to be courageous and stomp on that fear. Performance, always wanting to be on top of the best or the best. You cannot be just normal. You have to have the biggest story, the biggest fish. Your situation is always worse. Nobody can compete with you because you are the big man. That's all rooted in fear. I don't want to be invisible. I want everybody to know about me. My story. It's rooted in fear. It's partnering with fear. Always wanting to impress someone. I haven't done enough to be accepted or to be a valuable member somewhere. I haven't done enough. This fear. Victim orphan spirit. I can't talk about that. You could, but you choose not to. Oh, it's confidential. Right. Just basic lack of vulnerability is fear. Oh, here comes the religious answers. They're the best ones. Religious answers, they're the worst. We as Christians, we hide behind the Word of God. God and me, we're working on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, God and me, we're like this. Close. Mm-hmm. Right? One of the things that I find interesting is when we say the word I will try. Anybody who says I will try actually is already defeated. And the Christian circle would do this. Okay, all right, you're going to live on a budget? Yeah, I'll try. Don't worry about it. Just no. What does that mean? I try. Just imagine, construction worker comes to your house. Can you build my house? Well, I'll try. Huh? I'm not taking you anywhere. You're fired right now. I try means I'm going to go over this bridge, and if it's not good enough, then I'm just going to go back. Trying means nothing. Trying means half-hearted. Trying means just, I'm not even interested if it works. I'm not even believing it. That's why I'm trying it. Trying means absolutely nothing in the spiritual realm. The only thing that counts is I will. The only thing that counts is I'm doing it. It's no longer about trying. It's I'm doing. When I say I'm doing it, that means I believe it. If I say I try, it doesn't mean I believe it. It means if it works, good. If it doesn't work, I have a different plan. Jesus said to Peter and to all of the disciples, where are you all going to go? Because everybody left. And what did they say? He said, we don't know. We're just staying with you. Where should we go? That's our attitude. The believer doesn't have fear running him. He goes, we're doing this until the end. Well, what if this doesn't work out? I don't care. Well, what if this doesn't work out? I still don't care. What about if nothing works out? I don't care. Because I know God is real. I know He loves me. I know this. I know for a fact it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if nothing ever happens again. I know I'm sticking with God. I'm not partnering with fear. I choose to believe. I choose to act out the truth, even if I don't see it. That's courage. And it cripples and it annihilates fear. I really believe that God is looking for a generation and looking for the church to no longer have reasons to partner with fear, but to laugh at fear. And that doesn't mean that we won't feel sometimes the fear, that we won't have it around us, or that certain situations start coming up. But now we know the definition of fear is I need to honor and revere that. I'm not going to revere and honor. I'm not going to bow down to that. If I have terror and I'm really, then guess what? I need to figure out what am I doing wrong? What lie am I believing? But one thing I won't do, I will no longer bow down to Him. I will only bow down to God. I'm only going to honor that. I'm going to revere Him. I'm no longer going to go this route. And in that process, I'm going to walk on courage. Courage is when I'm living in the presence of God, I walk in courage. Courage walks on top of fear. Courage walks in spite of fear. Yes, your heart may be beating 100 miles an hour and everything else, but I will do opposite of that fear. No matter what it thinks, no matter what it says, I can be having a knipsch fit, whatever. My eyes are bugging, but I will walk this direction because I will not let fear conquer me. Because a believer, all things are possible. Is the moment I partner with fear, I say, nothing is possible. And I will not partner because bringing heaven to earth is bringing the impossible, supernatural to earth. Amen? Amen? God bless you guys. Have a great evening.